Welcome to Quality Code, and today we'll be taking a look at the range sum query problem. It's a very interesting and popular problem. So you're basically given an array of integers, could be negative, could be positive, and you're also given a bunch of queries which indicate the start and ending indices inside of the given array. So in this case, we're given 0 as the starting index and 2 as the ending index. So if we find the sum between indices 0 and 2 inclusive, in this case it would be -2, 0 plus 3, so that would give us a sum of 1. Similarly, the sum range between 2 and 5 would be 3 minus 5 plus 2 and minus 1, which is equal to -1. So let's take a look at the naive solution. So in this case, we have the constructor num array, which is passed our input. In this case, our input is the array of integers, nums. And we also have the sum range function, and I would be the starting index and j is the ending index. So to return the sum range, we just have a starting sum, which is initialized to 0. And then we just sum everything, starting from I up until j, and we just return that. So this is really good in terms of space complexity because we're not really using any extra space. But in terms of time complexity, the worst case would be n, which is the number of elements we have in our array. And in this case, we're assuming that we have many sum range queries. So the bottleneck in this case is a sum range query function. So one way of improving this is to pre-compute a matrix, for example, where each ij contains a sum range from I up until j. In that case, the time complexity would be constant because we just check the I and j within the matrix and return the value. But the problem now is we're using too much memory. Our matrix has n by n elements, so the space complexity would be n squared, which once again for this problem is too much. We want to try and find something that is constant time complexity and linear space complexity, not quadratic. At this point, I would suggest pausing the video and see if you can come up with the solution. Let's assume this is our input array, where a, b, c, d, e, f, and g are variables representing some integers. What we do is we generate a prefix array. The first element is just a. The next is everything we previously summed up plus the element itself, so in this case a plus b. The next one is a plus b plus c. The next is a plus b plus c plus d. So let's assume now we were asked to calculate the sum range between indices 2 and 3. What we need to do in that case is take the value at index 3, which contains the sum from the beginning up until index 3, and then subtract everything before the starting index. So in this case, we take the value at index 3 and subtract the value at index 1, which is a plus b. If we do that, we're left with c plus d, which is exactly what we're looking for. Similarly, if we wanted the sum range from 1 up until 3, once again, we take the value at 3, and we subtract everything that we've seen before 1. In that case, we subtract the value at index 0. One final note to make is usually we add a 0 at the very beginning of our prefix array, because if we were given the sum range from 0 up until 2, for example, then we need to take the value at index 2 and subtracted the value before index 0. And obviously in this case we have nothing before index 0, so we just subtract 0, which would be an additional value in our prefix array. So this is a final solution. You can find the link to the code in the description. If you have any questions, please let me know. It's exactly as we talked about. Just one thing to keep in mind is, once again, the prefix array is 1 indexed since we have that extra 0. So that can be a little tricky, but otherwise it should be fairly straightforward.